discuss the top 10 prison escapes of all time. Before starting the video, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to never miss out on any of our videos. Number 10. John Dillinger. American bank robber John Herbert Dillinger Jr. managed to break out of jail twice during his career. He was apprehended and jailed in Lima in the autumn of 1933 after robbing 2 banks. Just 4 days after Dillinger's capture, he made friends with seasoned crooks who had sneaked weapons into the prison and fled. A few days later, the crew returned to the same prison while posing as Indiana State Police guards and freed Dillinger. He was apprehended a year later and confined to the notoriously secure Crown Point jail. Dillinger made a rifle out of wood there, held 17 guys prisoner with it, and then made it off again. The John Dillinger prison break from the Lake Country Jail, sometimes known as the escape-proof jail, is regarded as one of the most spectacular and accomplished prison escapes of all time. However, he ultimately perished due to his prison break and getaway in a stolen car to Illinois. Number 9. Alexander Solonik's epic prison escape. As dangerous as he was enigmatic, Alexander Solonik, he was a former cop, a master marksman, and a skilled martial artist. He might or might not have served in the Soviet Special Forces, but there is little doubt that he ended up as a hired gun for the Russian mob. Before he was even given a sentence, he leaped out of the second-story window of the courthouse and fled to Siberia, beginning his career as a prison escapee. Solonik was detained for 2 years after being arrested in a salon while attempting to receive cosmetic surgery before escaping through the building's ventilation system in April of 1990. A Russian mob planned a rope, climbing equipment, and pistols for Solonik to scale the prison walls and escape into a waiting BMW in June of 1995 after bribing one of the guards. Only a dummy was all that Solonik had left behind in his jail bed. Number 8. The realistic version of the Inglorious Bastards. At least half of the 600 prisoners managed to escape from the Sobibor death camp during one of the most significant and most effective prison breaks of the 20th century. With the installation of mass killing facilities that resulted in this infamous prison break, the convicts had plans to murder both European and Polish Jews. Number 7. The famous escape from Alcatraz. This was one of the most audacious jail breakouts, and it was later transformed into a Clint Eastwood starring movie. In 1962, Frank Morris, Clarence, and John Anglin escaped the notorious Alcatraz jail. The 3 chiseled away the concrete walls of their cells to gain access to a nearby ventilation shaft, then made their way from the ventilation shaft onto the beach using a variety of ingenious contraptions that would make MacGyver envious. They later made their way to the San Francisco Bay on a makeshift raft, where they vanished without a trace. This was one of the most complex and successful jailbreaks, despite many people believing they died in the water because no bodies were ever discovered. On December 31st, 1979, the FBI formally ended the case, stating that no credible evidence emerged to suggest that men were still alive. Number 6. Frank Abagnale. The original Catch Me If You Can. In the movie Catch Me If You Can, Leonardo DiCaprio plays the infamous con artist Frank Abagnale. Abagnale used bank fraud and successful impersonations of pilots, attorneys, and doctors to avoid being caught and ensuing incarceration. He was spotted by an Air France flight attendant in 1969, who then called the authorities. Before being deported to America, he was imprisoned for 6 months in Sweden and France. Abagnale attempted to flee to Canada once the plane landed at JFK, but he was swiftly caught. Abagnale broke out of prison in Atlanta, Georgia in 1971. A forgery of an FBI business card and a phony prison inspector card were given to Abagnale by a friend. Then he persuaded the security personnel that he was an undercover prison inspector in urgent need of contacting the FBI. Abagnale made a call to a friend, left the facility, got in his car, and left. Number 5. Befuddling prison escape. Keith Rose, Andrew Roger, and Matthew Williams' 1995 prison break, which they accomplished with the aid of a 25-foot ladder, was considered perplexing. However, their efforts were in vain because they were apprehended by the police 4 days later. Number 4. The legendary prison escapes of El Chapo. Guzman had his cartel bribe the guards since corruption, and the risk of cartel retaliation was at an all-time high. Guzman was just escorted out of his cell by one of the guards and assisted into a laundry cart. This guard was eventually identified as Francisco Camberos Riviera. Guzman was then rolled into Riviera's car trunk in the parking lot. Compared to Guzman's escape in 2015, the news hardly registered with authorities worldwide. El Chapo has become known as the most potent drug trafficker in the world after 14 more years of further killings and assassinations. In contrast to his initial escape, his second produced complete incredulity and was trickier. In 2014, he was once more imprisoned. However, only 17 months later, he managed to escape through a mile-long tunnel that had been dug beneath the maximum security prison's showers and was equipped with lighting, ventilation, and motorbike tracks. Guzman's escape from yet another maximum security facility was the most embarrassing event for the authorities, but his freedom was short-lived. 6 months after being detained in Los Mochis, Sinaloa, he was extradited to the United States and given a life sentence in prison in July of 2019. Number 3. Pascal Payet's helicopter escape. Pascal Payet was involved in the heist of an armored vehicle belonging to Banque de France in 1997, which led to the death of one of the guards. He escaped from a prison on a chopper that had been hijacked on October 12, 2001. He used another hijacked chopper in 2003 to plan the escape of 3 of his fellow conspirators. He was ultimately apprehended and given a 30-year prison term for the 1997 murder, 7 years for the 2003 escape, and an additional 6 years for his 2001 escape. Payet became one of France's most intensively monitored prisoners and was frequently moved between jails. Despite these safety measures, on July 14, 2007, 4 masked men stole another helicopter and helped Payet escape from a grassy prison. He was apprehended once more 2 months later in Mataró, Spain. His current whereabouts are kept a well-guarded secret. Number 2. The Amazing Shrinking Man. 53-year-old Choi Gap-bok is a convicted felon who has spent more than 20 years in prison and a yoga expert. Choi first evaded capture by squeezing through the bars of a bus carrying prisoners to jail 25 years ago. 2 days later, he was apprehended. During the majority of his 20 years in and out of prison, Choi decided to practice yoga. He was prepared to pull off an even more fantastic escape on September 17, 2012. He covered his pillows with a blanket to give the impression that he was still in bed when the guards slept off and rubbed the skin cream all over his body. The prisoner then escaped by fitting through the narrow food slot at the bottom of his cell. 6 days later, he was captured and put in a cell with a tiny meal slot. Yoga seems more than just a well-liked form of exercise for certain people. Number 1. The prison escape at Dannemora. Inmates Richard Matt and David Sweat of the Clinton Correctional Facility escaped on June 5, 2015, using tunnels they had constructed and a steam pipe that took them outside the jail. Despite their inability to escape, the jailbreak was such a compelling demonstration of corruption and sheer resolve that it was turned into a 2018 television series, Escape at Dannemora. Ultimately, the inside assistance of correctional employees Joyce Mitchell and Gene Palmer was essential to Matt and Sweat's successful breakout. Along with paying Palmer to bring them tools wrapped in lunch meat, the convicts had also successfully courted Mitchell so that she reciprocated their advances. Months of hole cutting by Matt and Sweat eventually resulted in tunnels between the walls. They disappeared, leaving homemade dummies in their jail beds. They soon arrived across a pipe that ran to a utility hole in the Dannemora village. However, their escape was just temporary. On June 26th, Matt was fatally shot by a customs officer. On September 28th, Sweat was shot and put back behind bars. Let us know your opinion in the comments section below. This was all for today. Hope you liked the video. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stay safe, and we will be back soon with another video.